Hi everyone, thanks once again for tuning in. Today's video is in response to a viewer's question about their own swing in which they moved through backswing, resulting in a lot of head drop. So today we're going to focus on rotation in the backswing and a little bit of setup and sequence checks for the backswing as well. But there should be some good content here for most golfers, so stay tuned. Once again, if you enjoyed this video and if you're enjoying the channel, please remember to hit subscribe. Also go to ianmellorgolf.com if you have any interest in an online or in-person lesson. Okay, so the player that I was discussing in the introduction, the pattern that he explained through backswing that he had was initially through backswing, a lot of excessive movement through the lead leg, leading to the top of backswing, the head being somewhat tilted forward and quite a lot lower than it was at address. So a pattern that I do see fairly regularly, and again, I find goes primarily back to setup and how the player starts to move in the initial phases of backswing. So I'm going to share with you today a pretty simple, straightforward drill using the band that I've got there on the floor, or exercise that you could use to build awareness of improving your rotation through the backswing and how the rib cage could rotate in response to what would be a poorer way to rotate, leading to some of the tendencies we saw the player having then. Okay, so let's start off with setup. Typically when I see an adaptation with the lower body early in the swing, it goes back to how the pelvis, rib cage, and how the player is standing in address. So again, one of my favorite awareness techniques for being an equal bend at each hip is just taking the fingers, pinching each finger equal amount there. Typically for a player that adapts a lot in the lead side, what I've seen is that they'll sit into the trail side more, so that early in the swing there's that early adaptation where the body's kind of seeking a better or an easier place to move from. So let's first just make sure we're in equal bend in each hip, and then while we're there, just making sure ankle, knees, hips align, and from there we're in a more advantageous place to start the swing, because from here when the player sits into the right side and they have to adapt to the pelvis, now the pelvis is one of the earliest segments to move in the golf swing, which takes away from letting the club head move, the hands move, and the rib cage and eventually feed down to the pelvis, responding one of the later segments. So we want to make that setup adjustment, and then from there just allow the club head to move first, allow the hands to respond to where the club head's going, allow the arms, the body to respond more to where the hands are going, and then finally the pelvis then moving one of the later segments in the backswing sequence. Okay, so there are a couple of initial things to check. Let's have a look at the rotation drill now here. I find that if you find that you're that player, you have a similar pattern to the player where the head's dropping in a little bit of this manner in the backswing, this is, I find, could be of most value to you. So all I've got here is a band. It's not got a ton of intensity to it, but all I've done is I'm going to put it over my body there, and I'm going to push out so my hands are outside my elbows, fingers spread out, palms facing away, elbows lining up with bottom ribs there, and as I push out there, I'm creating a little bit of space between my arms and my body. Okay, so in the pattern that the player had, they would typically start the rotation with lower body, and then the head would start moving down this way. So I'm going to show you down the line what that makes the band look like, and see how it gets quite vertical, and from face on you'll see how short I get through my lead side. So a good reference here is just the distance from the bottom rib to the top of the lead hip there. So you can see how the distance there is getting closer, and how the band is starting to look more vertical when I do that in backswing. And as I go to the top of my backswing, now my head starts to drop in response to how the other segments are moving. So what we're actually looking for, what would be for most players improving the rotation, would be from this setup position, allowing the hands to move and then the body to respond in a way where you see here in backswing now, how the band is, it's not horizontal, but it's nowhere near as vertical. And again, to reference the lead hip and the bottom rib, if I was to go this way, we're actually maintaining the distance between that bottom rib and the lead hip as I rotate. So if you look at, if you watch the PGA Tour, if you watch the LPGA, guys that rotate really well, a lot of them will have a stripe across the shirt in some of the shirt designs. You'll never see the stripe on the shirt looking vertical in this way as they're moving through backswing. You'll see it looking more somewhere reflecting the band position there as they get into the top of backswing. So another point of feedback a lot of players offer is that when moving more in this way, how much more it feels that trail shoulder is moving around behind them rather than moving up in the start. Okay, so some good little references to build on your awareness in your own swing there. Typically when players first pop this on and they start rotating with it, to avoid that lower rib getting closer to the lead hip there, they'll start to move a lot off the ball there to kind of keep that length. It's then over time just minimizing how much you move off, but achieving the same concepts that we're going over. Okay. Once you've done enough reps and you kind of built your awareness up there of what you could move like, then it's time, come to the ball, make sure your setup's good, as we were looking there, equal bend in each hip, then focusing on nice takeaway sequence in which club head moves much more first, hands respond, arms respond to the hands, body responds to where the hand path is going. So one little addition there, if the hand path moves in early in the swing, that's one thing that often pushes the trail arm up, pushes the shoulder up, and pushes the lead side down. So just be cautious of moving your hands too much in too early in this. So club, hands, arms, good sequence there. And a lot of just practice swings with this is good. Back and forth between the band, and then just some easy short irons and wedges are a good way to continue your building the understanding and awareness of the better movement there.